Hello, uh, welcome. I was thinking more, uh, just logged in again and was thinking more about these player in the scouting pool. We were deliberating basically whether or not we were going to buy in the daily video, the daily loot video. We got stuck. Wasn't this guy? There was a guy. I think he was 19. It was this guy. Umming and ahhing about this guy. And now I kind of made the decision that I was going to buy him, and then I've just noticed he's really low endurance, and that might impact it. Yeah, and that's probably why we didn't just buy him to begin with. But I guess we'll try and make a decision by the end of this video. But I have been sort of umming and ahhing about it still, and really trying to answer the question as to whether we should buy this player or not. So I thought it would be good just to do a video to try and capture the types of things that are factoring in here. So firstly, we do just have an immediate cash flow issue, basically. As in, like, we got a projected balance of like 2.4, 2.5 million. And we still have basically like 3 days, 6 hours. So we have 3 more scouting pools. Before we'll get to next week and have access to potentially play all of the matches on day one and get the cash injection. But obviously, like, then we would have the same problem next week, if that makes sense. Like, we don't really want to be in a position where we're constantly just waiting for the next week of league period start so we can play all the matches and get the cash injection. So I guess in a roundabout way, I'm just really trying to say that there is a cash issue here for us that we don't know if a really awesome player will pop up, like the DC that we got today, earlier. This guy here we picked up for like basically 2.077 million, but between the wages and the signing fee of the projection, that's basically 2.5 million. So we could get one more player basically like this, and that would be all of our projection gone. And there is a chance we get one player like this in the next few days. There's obviously a chance we won't, so we just got to factor that in, all of that in. And we also have to consider that even if you don't get a player like this, we might get 2 or 3 other players. So anyway, so that's one consideration, but we already were covering that in the last video. So the other consideration is we want to get rid of this guy here. I mean, he's great or whatever, but he's not, and he's doing really well for us, and he has all the attributes we need, and it's all great or whatever, but like realistically, this guy, he's 34 or whatever, he just has no future for us. So and we don't necessarily need a player. In my estimation, we're not going to need a player of this quality. We could have a player a little bit worse, and as long as we get our tactics sorted and get our squad properly rounded, like, we just don't need this guy in order to get promoted next season, basically. And then by the time you're talking about the season after next season, I mean, this guy won't even be in the game. He will have retired, basically. So it's just there's no future, basically. We could have this guy for this season and next season, and he'll help or whatever, but then that's it. He's retired. You get nothing. You've spent what is basically at this point, like, what are they going to be, another 1 point something million in wages? It doesn't make any sense. So at this point, like, we're just hanging, like, as we're saying, this guy's just hanging around waiting for us to basically, at this point, really, he could go potentially now, especially if we needed the money to buy somebody. The other thing he's kind of waiting for, really, is just for us to pick up another DC, really, of any description. And as soon as we do that, he'll be sold. So that's basically, I guess, a contributing reason to buy this guy. Because if we buy this other guy, then we can sell this guy, and we can stop paying these wages. And basically, at its core, it's like 600k wages, right? So it's basically £20,000 a day we're losing on his wages. Until we make a decision on someone else. Now, obviously, if we get someone else, like this other guy, he's got his own wages, right? So in this particular example, it's 190, right? So we're really talking about a 410k differential. So it's not really 20k a day that we're saving. It's more like, I don't know, 16 or something, right? So, is that right? Sorry, it'd be 210. Was that right? So it would be 390. So it's like 13. Sorry, is that about right? I think it's about 13k wages a day. So if we did that, so not hugely urgent just to buy the guy for the sake of buying guy. That doesn't make sense, but it's a factor. Basically, I'm just trying to highlight up the factors here. In regards to our senior team, just getting through these training league matches, like other than the fact that we want to get one more DC before we sell this guy, there's no real urgency. Like if we have to use these other players, kind of like so be it, you know, like because we don't mind if we don't win these matches. It's just about getting our team set up. Basically, that's the priority. So that doesn't really matter. And ditto for the youth matches. It doesn't really matter how we do win them. But what I was thinking is next season for the youth team, like we won't have the scope, I don't believe, to sort of be able to recruit all the players that we want. To play the same tactic as the senior team, at least from the start of next season. I think we could loosely have a hope that by the start of the following season, maybe we could try to do that. Because we'd have 2 sets of academy trial graduates by then. And between handpicking those 12 players, that probably gets us there. But for next season in particular, I was kind of thinking like, even if we want to try to move towards that, it's something that'll be a gradual process throughout the season. I guess what, in a long-winded way, what I'm really saying is, okay, this guy shouldn't be in. The youth team next season is going to be a bit of a patchwork quilt. That might be the way to put it. It's going to be something that it'll just be a bunch of players and we'll just throw them together and try and do the best we can. But it's actually worse than that, really, from a results perspective, because we will want to be using, as in either starting or frequently bringing off the bench, every single one of our 6 graduates, which basically means that we'll be trying to compete in an under-21 league with at least six 16-year-olds, basically heavily featuring throughout the team. So that's one thing, that's one issue, is that it isn't just a case that we can make the best tactic we can with what we have. We also have sort of this constraint, really, that we will want to be developing up these 6 players. And then I think from a progression standpoint, ideally our youth team would be getting promoted next season. Because the higher the division our youth team is, the better the academy trialist prospects on average that come through our academy trial each day. So if basically getting promoted with our youth team is pretty important from the perspective of being able to get better and better and better, we still go through the process and we have to pick them, so there's still like a lot of, skill / and luck involved, but, we get way more chances of being lucky as we get promoted. Hopefully, again and again. But obviously, in order to get promoted again and again, you have to get promoted once first. So I'm just kind of thinking about the fact that, that we need enough in this youth team to be able to compete next season. Bearing in mind that we also are going to be running basically, or including in the team setup, these 16-year-olds. And then we also have to bear in mind that this really good centre half that we got, who would be great. He'd be enough to sort of, we could work with that, and he would shore up the other centre half could be not particularly good or whatever. But the thing is, next season he's going to be 22, so he's not going to be in the youth team. And then also, whilst this keeper, he's not that great or whatever anyway, but in any case, he's going to be 22. So this guy will come in, and he's only got 18 shot stopping. Okay, sorry about that. I just had to quickly speak to someone. I've lost my train of thought now. Sorry. Yeah. So this guy, he's not particularly good. So we'll get another keeper. It's possible we'll get a graduate one, obviously, but then we'll be running 16-year-old keeper. So, this is a point that's worth bearing in mind, that we need to pick up a keeper at some point, or we're going to need to get a graduate one. But my whole train of thought here really, and this striker who, again, he could carry this youth team single-handedly, basically. But again, he's going to be 22 next season. So this key, and it's not that of course, it's likely to be the case that the best two players in under 21 squad are both 21. But point is that we sort of have these two players that would be capable of carrying this team, but they won't be in this team next season. And without them, I think if we could use all of these older players like we are now, we could probably be pretty competitive. But we will really want to be using these 16-year-olds. So I'm just kind of factoring in a long-winded way. All I'm really trying to say is these are all reasons to get this DC, because at the end of the day, as long as we have a solid defense, so to speak, as long as we're defensively stable, as long as we rarely concede goals, that should be enough. All by it combined with doing stuff that makes sense and good decisions in matches and bloody blah. But it's kind of, to some degree, whatever the other players are, we'll be able to set something up so that we score a goal a game, or one or two goals, or whatever the case is, basically. So we will be able to score some goals. So now, as to whether we'll be able to outscore the opposition, if the opposition is constantly scoring goals against us, that's another thing. But as long as we're defensively stable, really solid, let's say, then I feel like that all by itself will just get us promoted, is what I'm trying to say. And at the moment, we kind of are pretty close to that. I mean, we obviously will lose our best defender here, but we'll have this left back who's pretty decent at youth level, at least for the bottom division, and this right back who's pretty good at this level for the youth, especially in the bottom division. We'll have this DC who's not great at all, but which is a reason why we need at least, to be honest, one more DC. And that's a reason to get this guy, because he would really make us defensively stable. Now, the downside of getting this guy is that he probably needs to be subbed off every match. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It could well be the case that one of our graduates is a DC, and that's a way for us to naturally get him lots of appearances off the bench without having to sort of do artificial things to force it, just something natural to happen. So it's not necessarily all bad. It's not good. It's not a good thing, but I'm just trying to say it's not as bad as what it might seem, potentially. So yeah. So that's where I'm at. And I was just about to buy the guy, but then I've noticed this low endurance, and just sort of trying to think that over, quite frankly. From memory, he was going to get +4 tackling or something. Yeah. +3 strength, +3 positioning. So he's got a good boost here. I think there was another issue that he doesn't have huge scope. That's not a lot, like 44 to 62. If I go like scouter players at 19, like 62 is, well, yeah, you can see here it's on the bottom end, basically. There's one that's less. So you know what? I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna pass on this guy because I'm just kind of thinking about it. Because for example, if we look at this, it kind of looks all right compared to our current defenders. But the reality is, even if we just go to our academy trialists, for example, and we look at some of these DCs that are in here, like he's got 59 marking, for example. This guy's got 53 speed, for example, and 56 aerial ability, and the 32 marking, right? These are the two in. And then this side is a defender as well, 55 speed, 57 marking, 55 tackling. Let's just take this guy as a barometer, right? Like 55, 57. What is it? 55, 57, 55. We don't know the other stuff yet, so, you know, could be whatever it is. But if we go to this guy, scouter players, 19, like, what was it, 55, 57, 55? So it's kind of like we could be getting academy trial graduates potentially, right, at DC that, yeah, they're not going to be as good as this guy when they're 16, sure. But they could be like, you know, not way worse, basically. And they could potentially, as far as the key attributes are concerned, so potentially all of, like, well, the tackling here, obviously, he's got another +4, so at that point he's going to be 74, which is genuinely pretty good, and it's a reason to consider this guy. But I'm not looking at the right guy. But yeah, he's just not that ahead of the curve, I think. That's what it comes down to, like, so to speak. Like, he's not, like, obviously the tackling is better, and that's, like, probably the most important attribute here at the end of the day. But again, he's going to be 20 next season. He will have got the, you know, he'll be 74 tackling at that point. And the best we could hope to get with an Academy Trials graduate is 16. But, sorry, 60. But I think it's mostly like just the fact that the speed and the aerial ability, and even the marking for that matter, they're all kind of at amounts that, like, we could potentially get, like, the graduate, and then during their first season they could already be better than this player at all of those things. And then it's just a case of, like, especially if we had a couple of them, just one of them ending up with, like, 73 tackling over time. So I think, and then the question just becomes, how critical is it to have that one defender with the 73 tackling in order to get promoted with the youth team? Which is the original question we're asking here. It's a shame in a way, because, like, with the 69 tackling, 53, because we bought these other guys, right, that it's like he's only 59 tackling and he's also 19, so he's clearly just, like, not that great. Like, great compared to our youth players, and he's going to be good enough versus the competition, but not that great from the perspective of what I'm trying to describe here. Like, we could potentially, like the right back that potentially could get promoted, as far as the key attributes are concerned, he could be right up there, basically, very similar to this guy, like, as soon as we get him, when he's 16. So actually looking at these players in a roundabout way, what I'm saying is looking at these players. It could be the case that our 16-year-olds, if we pick the graduates well, they might not even be a downgrade anyway on these players. And I suppose if we are struggling a bit, if the youth team is struggling a bit, we could prioritise trying to get a player for them in the transfer market next season to sort of get them good enough. I think there's a bit of a problem with that, in particular if you want to try and get promoted. Like, there's only so many points you can drop in the beginning. There's only so far behind you can fall where catching up becomes really difficult just by changing a couple things or buying a player or something. You don't want to fall that far behind. But so we don't want to get it too wrong. But I think all things considered, we're just going to pass, I think. We're just going to give a pass on this other player. This player, I think. Yeah. It's a pass, I think. It's close again. Like, you can see, like, it's really difficult here. Like, it's not immediately obvious. Problem is with this kind of guy, obviously, I think a lot of it is just like, clearly this guy is just going to be a starter. Like, for the youth, he would be... The thing is, like, yes, I'm talking about... But it is, like... Yeah, it's a tricky one. Like, clearly he's going to be at 73 tackling or whatever. Like, thing is, that is way better than 57. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's materially better. He's clearly going to start next season and the season after. At that point, basically, you know, it's 190 wages, another 190, probably even goes up to 200, and the rest of this season, it's like, what is that, like, another 100. It's like potentially 500,000 wages plus whatever this signing fee is, 331. So that's like 831 plus the 10%. So it's like 875, something like that. 875,000. It's a weird one because it's like he's probably more impactful than those fullbacks. So if we go to the youth squad with these fullbacks, both of them, and the wages for these guys, well, one of them is 115, so that's quite a bit less. But the other one is actually more. And it's going to be 250. It will, like I was saying, I think it will be like, oh man, I'm all over the place here. Well, you know what? I'm gonna buy him. I'm just thinking, like, trying to put it all together here. So, I think in summary, we're saying if we get him, we will be defensively stable next season, and if we're not, then it would have been a total disaster without him. Quite frankly, we may need even another. We'll see what graduates we get, but it's kind of like we probably need to get like either a graduate that's better than this guy or buy a guy. So we need another DC, and realistically, I doubt, like, if we get two DCs, one of them will start and one of them will come off the bench probably for the other guy consistently. We will otherwise find appearances. We may even run three DCs. So we could get two DC graduates and they're both going to get a lot of appearances in the first season. At least we may get more DC graduates after, and then we'll have to reevaluate. But and then he's 19, so we'd get him for 2 seasons. He kind of fits the timeline with these other guys who may or may not be around. But for that term, but we'll have to assume at this point they will. So And then it allows us to immediately sell this other guy, which is immediately saving a little bit of money each day. And I guess the worst case scenario here is that we end up selling the guy. So if that happens, if we sell the guy, so 365 we're going to pay, and then we'd get back 75% of 331. It's about 80. Is that about 250? 75% of 331, something like that. So we get it. I think we get 250 back, and we'd pay. What did I say? 365. So we'd lose 115,000. 115,000, but we'd be saving. Because if we bought this guy, we would immediately sell that other central defender, and then at that point we'd be saving whatever it was, 13,000 a day. So it's still an amount that matters. If you don't want to make the mistake, for us, it's still an amount that we care about. But yeah, we'll do it. So let's buy him. I'm just factoring it all in. I just feel like, all things considered, the fact that he'll have our youth team get promoted, that it's not, at the end of the day, like, it's still relatively a minor amount of money. I mean, we are talking about, paying 331k here, plus this kind of wages, when we still have, like, another 15 million coming in cash injections. So it's not like, it's just an immediate thing, basically, in that we don't have much money now, and we have 3 more scouting pools, but we don't know what we'll find. And at the end of the day, like I said, if we end up, the reality is, if we end up selling this guy to buy some other guy, like, the other guy is awesome, so it's not that big a deal, I suppose, to lose the money over. So let's do it. So let's buy this guy, and then the thing that we can immediately do now is sell this guy and save those wages. To be honest, this was a pretty close decision. I could have just made the wrong choice here, but unfortunately, like, it's kind of got to do with future opportunities and blah 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 blah, and how this player develops. So it's a bit of a, like a, it's more about assessing the risk or whatever involved, and just trying to make an educated decision. But like, I feel in particular with this one, like, if you get it wrong for whatever one of these reasons, and you end up selling the guy, it's not a huge loss, because it wasn't that much money, basically. The outlay's not that big, and even if it takes a bit of time to, even if you're paying the wages for a bit of time first, they're not that high. At the end of the day, it's not a total disaster if we get this run wrong. And for all we know, like, the training options will, roll around and may get something good. I don't know, maybe not, but the ones this time around were alright. So it's just hard. Like I say, he doesn't have a lot of scope to grow as well. So there was just a lot of factors back and forth. But I think in the end, like, I think there's a decent chance that guy alone just means that our youth team is defensively stable next season, and because of that, it means they get promoted next season, and because of that, like, we get better, like, academy trial graduates, and that all by itself could be, like, longer term, could be single-handedly worth, like, 10 or 20 million pounds, just because you ended up with one, like, super duper player, let's say, that you otherwise wouldn't have. So anyway, right, so let's just get rid of this guy to save the wages, because it wouldn't make sense. One of the main reasons why we bought this other guy was so that we can immediately just liquidate this guy. And we'll work out our new defensive setup and blah blah blah, like, with how we're going to fit our new player in. I think maybe the one thing I will do though is just add him to the senior team. Squad numbers are getting a bit muddled now because of all the buying and selling, so we might do those on a video as well. I think at this point he probably just will be that role, but we'll assess that properly in the next video. Ideally, again, like the this guy now, he would be faster. Ideally, but you know, maybe he's there anyway. So for the level we're at, he's not slow. It's just a case of the priorities. The thing is yeah. Anyway, we'll cover this in the next video. I think for now it's just like yeah, this is the thing. It's like every decision counts, and some decisions are just difficult on the edge, and you really need to. We already did quite a few purchases for greater amounts of money than that were much more whimsical than that. And the thing is, if we did that proper sort of thought pattern and that proper sort of analysis, we wouldn't have, for example, bought players like this, who are like, you know, we had quite a big outlay for this guy and decent wages and whatever. And it's because of purchases like that guy and the keeper that have sort of put us in this position to begin with. So anyway, alright, thanks for watching. We'll catch you for the next one.